no one could handle the paralyzed billionaire until the single dad saw the photo. On her desk, the interview lasted less than 3 minutes before the expensive crystal vase shattered against the wall. The paralyzed billionaire in the wheelchair glared at another caregiver walking out in fear, making him the 12th person to quit that month. Everyone in the mansion believed she was impossible to help. But when a struggling single father stepped into her office and noticed an old, faded photograph resting quietly on her desk, everything changed. That single picture carried a secret powerful enough to heal wounds money never could. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to Kindness Echoes for more emotional stories that stay with your heart. Daniel Harper had never imagined his life would become a daily battle for survival. At 36, he was raising his 8-year-old daughter Lily alone after losing his wife to cancer 3 years earlier. Every morning began before sunrise as he packed Lily's school lunch, braided her hair despite never learning properly, and rushed between part-time jobs just to keep the lights on in their tiny apartment. Bills covered every surface of the kitchen table, and the eviction notice, hidden inside a drawer, felt heavier than any object he had ever carried. When he heard about a caretaker position at the estate of billionaire businesswoman Victoria Ashford, he almost laughed. Everyone in town knew the stories. Victoria had once been one of the youngest technology CEOs in the country until a devastating helicopter crash left her permanently paralyzed from the waist down. Since then, grief had turned her into someone feared by employees, nurses, assistants, and even executives. Nobody stayed longer than a few weeks. Daniel accepted the interview because he had nothing left to lose. The mansion stood like a silent castle, surrounded by perfectly trimmed gardens that somehow felt lifeless. Inside, priceless paintings decorated marble walls. Yet every hallway echoed with loneliness instead of luxury. Staff members avoided eye contact, speaking in whispers as if sadness itself lived inside the building. Victoria barely acknowledged Daniel's arrival. Sitting behind an elegant wooden desk in her wheelchair, she looked exhausted rather than cruel. Dark circles rested beneath determined eyes that had clearly forgotten what happiness looked like. Before asking him a single question, she intentionally knocked a stack of expensive files onto the floor. Daniel quietly picked them up without complaint. She criticized his resume. He simply thanked her for reading it. She questioned whether a struggling single father could possibly care for someone richer than he could ever imagine. Daniel answered honestly. Pride had never fed his daughter. As he carefully placed the papers back onto her desk, something caught his attention, a small framed photograph. It showed a smiling woman standing beside a young boy, wearing an oversized baseball cap. Unlike everything else in the room, the frame was worn from years of being touched. Daniel froze. Not because he recognized the woman, but because he recognized the place. It was the children's cancer wing at St. Matthew's Hospital. The same hallway where his wife had spent her final weeks volunteering while secretly fighting her own illness. Memories flooded back with heartbreaking clarity. His wife had often spoken about a wealthy young businesswoman who anonymously paid medical bills for struggling families, refusing any recognition. She had once mentioned seeing that same little boy laughing, despite losing his mother to cancer. Daniel gently asked about the photograph. For the first time, Victoria's expression changed. She didn't become angry. She became silent. Over the following days, Daniel learned the truth. The woman in the photograph had been Victoria's older sister, Emma. The little boy was Victoria's nephew, Noah. Both had died in a car accident only months before Victoria's helicopter crash. She had lost the only family she had left before losing the ability to walk. The grief never stopped. Success built her fortune, but tragedy built the walls around her heart. Instead of treating Victoria like a billionaire, Daniel treated her like someone carrying unbearable pain. He brought Lily to visit the mansion on weekends. After receiving permission, the cheerful little girl filled empty rooms with laughter that had been missing for years. She showed Victoria her school drawings, read adventure books aloud, and never once stared at the wheelchair. Slowly, the mansion began changing. Flowers appeared in forgotten gardens. The piano that had remained untouched for years played again. Employees smiled more often. Victoria even started attending board meetings in person instead of hiding behind video calls. One rainy afternoon, Daniel discovered Victoria sitting alone in the library holding Emma's photograph with trembling hands. She admitted that she had spent years believing everyone stayed only because of her money. Daniel understood that fear. People had often pitied him because he was poor. Neither wealth nor poverty protected anyone from loneliness. That conversation became the turning point. Victoria created a charitable foundation honoring Emma and Noah, funding treatment for children battling cancer and supporting widowed parents struggling to rebuild their lives. Daniel helped organize every program, ensuring families received compassion instead of paperwork. Months later, Lily proudly stood beside Victoria during the grand opening of the foundation's first family care center. Cameras captured the billionaire smiling sincerely for what newspapers called the first time in years. But the greatest victory wasn't the headlines. It was watching Victoria laugh freely, while helping children who reminded her that hope always survives somewhere beyond heartbreak. Daniel never became rich overnight. He never expected rewards. Yet because he chose compassion instead of fear, he found stable work, lifelong friendship, and a future his daughter could finally believe in. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can offer another person isn't strength, money, or success. Sometimes it's simply noticing the photograph everyone else ignored. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Echoes. Your support helps these stories of kindness reach people who may need them most. Special request: before this story ends, please comment, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe one act of compassion can transform someone's future. Because the greatest miracles rarely begin with extraordinary people. They begin with ordinary hearts, willing to care when everyone else walks away.